Welcome. This is episode 17. My name is Alan. I'm the host, and this show features, as always, April Crawford, who's a full-body, open, deep trance channel and best-selling author, and also Veronica, which is our name for a causal plane entity that we talk to frequently and who handles almost all of our client relationships. So the basic format is that April says a few words, if she cares to, and then we bring in Veronica and talk about a bunch of subjects, which Veronica has no idea what we're going to talk about. She seems to be able to field the questions quite easily. Hold on for April.
Hi, everyone. It's me, April. It's my time to have something to say. I've been doing this for about 30 years now, and this is the first forum that I've gotten a chance to talk. So I've decided I'm going to start talking about my feelings and my perception of what I'm doing and how it's affected my life and how it helped me make choices that I probably wouldn't have made had I not been doing the channeling. When I first started doing this, I wasn't all that enthusiastic about everybody knowing what I was doing. I came from a very Catholic background with a very Catholic mother who, in the end, I found out she was completely supportive and knew everything I was doing, obviously. But I came from that perspective. I went to an all-girl Catholic high school that was very religious. I always questioned the Catholic faith. I was a little bit of a troublemaker in that regard, especially in my senior year. I would ask questions that usually got me sent up to talk to Mother Superior because they were a little off color as far as the nun who was teaching the religion class was concerned. Every day since I started doing the channeling, it's been different. For a long time, I didn't even tell my best friend that I was doing this. I had a certain group of people that I participated with, and we did group sessions, and we even did a television show at one point. But it never aired, so I didn't have to worry about coming clean or coming out. And I always felt like it was like a coming out, like a gay person coming out and telling people this is who I am and what I do. I didn't do that for a very long time, and I gave Alan a really hard time. Anytime he wanted to, put something out on the Internet or put my picture out on the Internet, I usually gave him a pretty rough road to trot on because I didn't want that. I wanted to, I guess, maintain the duality of the good little Catholic girl with my family and friends from home and not ruffle any feathers with the group of friends I had out here. I think there was only one person that I told what I was really doing. And continued to write books. I continued to do a lot of things. I was known as April Clausen in my peer group. And, of course, being April Crawford was a whole different experience. And I find now that it's really refreshing and comforting to be able to be on a radio show and talk about what I went through. And I know a lot of you are probably going through that too. Those of you who are aspiring to be channels, there are a lot of people around you, I presume, that aren't completely on board or have any understanding of what you're doing. They think it's more like that movie The Exorcist where your head's spinning around and you're spitting out pea soup or something. And it's not like that at all. And I've had many people ask me over the years, well, aren't you afraid of evil spirits? And I've never encountered one in the work that I've done. I now firmly believe that evil is only in the minds of men. It's not in the minds of spirit. And there is no negativity that I've ever encountered. And I've been to quite a few really strange places while I'm doing the channeling that have nothing to do with this reality. And I've yet to encounter that evilness. I've only encountered it and witnessed it in our reality and time frame. I think every week I'm just going to talk a little bit about coming out and being who I am and how important it is for the balance of my own essence and how important it is for those of you who are aspiring to be honest and tell people what you're doing, because I think the educational part of it is important. We have all grown up in a culture that's been very dictated to, and religion is a part of that. You're told this is what you believe, this is what you do, this is the ceremony you participate in, and you can't deviate from that or you're going to hell. Pretty much is what the word was in the Catholic faith. I think it's important to know that you can be in the reality, participate with those who are really religious, but speak your mind. They're very zealous about speaking their mind about their faith. You should be able to speak your mind about what your faith is and what you believe in and what you're doing. And I'm getting more comfortable with that as we go on. I just remember when my mother died, I thought she knew nothing. And she, I told you we found evidence of her knowing some of my writings. Where she got them, because she didn't have a computer, is beyond me. But she got them. And my mother never questioned me on it, never called me out. She just let me do my thing. And I think she knew that I would probably find evidence of it after she crossed over. And it was humbling to know that she accepted me, even though it was way out of her comfort zone, totally out of her comfort zone. And I think all of you need to know, especially those of you who are aspiring to connect that way, that it's important to be who you are and just put it out there. And people are going to accept you or not accept you by virtue of what they believe in. So every week I'm going to talk a little bit about it, because I do think it's important for everyone to know that it's okay to be who you are. And if you're avant-garde or a little bit outside the box, or as some people will say, a little bit wacko, it's okay. Because wacko just means that you're not in line with what the tradition is. And it's okay to be untraditional.
Thank you, April. And an interesting segue, because I had no idea what April's going to talk about or what Veronica's talk about. But it's an interesting segue because it comes into this first question that we received on the comment section from Jeremiah Trotter. And it says, let's say a devout Catholic dies and they don't go to the pearly gates, so to speak. How do they react? What is their reaction when they find out that reincarnation is real? Also, if they choose to reincarnate, will they often re-enter into another Catholic family? I suppose I should have waited for Veronica to come in before I asked that question. Do I need to repeat it?
Greetings to all of you. It is Veronica. The question that was asked, as we were coming in, before somebody forgot to tell us to come in, we see this clearly. When someone crosses over with a very strong belief system, their thoughts are usually able to create an atmosphere of whatever their belief system is. So when they arrive there, they have projected pearly gates. They have projected St. Peter. They have projected the ideology of what their belief system was all about. Unfortunately, they can only project so much. And what happens is that there becomes a loop of energy that is rather repetitive. Their guides and other energies know that this is a fallacy of crossing over, where there's a fallacy that, the pearly gates are going to be there. There is help and assistance, because there is a rather awakening moment where the individual realizes that something isn't quite right, that the things are repeating over and over, and they start to question the reality that they're in. They are met by the guides who support them and rather gently tell them that, all right, you're in a loop, and the reality is this, that you are in a space of comfort, you are in a space of unconditional love, but the belief system that you have in place is a bit askew, and here are the reasons why. It's done very lovingly and gently. It's not like someone comes in and pulls the rug out and says, okay, this is what the reality is, too bad for you. It's not that way at all. There is so much compassion and love on the other side that it often softens and helps those who are coming to a realization of what really is. Now, of course, there are those who are a little bit younger souls that might just reincarnate themselves immediately with that perception in place. But those who get there and realize that there's an odd moment, that it's not functioning as they thought it was going to, that the guides and those energies who help in such matters step in and help them to realize what's going on. And the majority of the time there is understanding, rejoicing, and comfort, and knowing, okay, I'm way beyond just one aspect of my belief system. I can go beyond that. So we'd say it's not as hard as one would think it would be, because you're able to see your other selves, whether you have a belief system in place or not. And that starts the whole cycle of questions that often let energies who have crossed start to have the revelation of what's really going on. So it's not scary, it's not debilitating, and it's not an argument. The energy usually comes to terms with it on their own, but there is much support and much unconditional love in the process.
Thank you, Veronica. Now, this next question is a little lengthy, so I'm going to paraphrase it, I hope. And it's a question from Catherine Phillips, who wants to know about self-healing, and she's read a lot of books on the subject. And there's a couple questions. Are we really able to completely heal our bodies with our minds by focusing on energy as white light and direct it to wherever that healing is needed within our bodies, whether it is on whatever layer of consciousness? She also asks, and you want to find the exact quote, read it on the comments section, but she said, if so, can we change our minds from, what we originally agreed to as far as how long we're going to live, and completely heal if we decide to do it and live a longer life than we had planned for? Is it all within our power to do so?
Yes, it is. Agreements made, let's say ahead of time you decided that you were going to participate in a disease of some sort that would take you out of the timeline, say in your mid-50s. But as you move through the life, you resolve a lot of your issues and you resolve a lot of the problematic things that would make you want to get out of the life at the age of 55. So as you approach that age, and let's say you manifest what you intended to manifest. Let's say you manifest a cancerous moment. You can make different choices. You can decide to say, you know what, I'm going to go through this cancerous moment, but I've decided not to let it take me out of the reality. I've decided to let me be in the reality as I move through it. And I've decided now I want to live well into my 80s because I've resolved a lot of the heartbreak and difficulties from other time frames, and I wish to enjoy this life and not use a cancerous moment as an exit plan. I'm deciding not to do that. It can be done. It takes a great deal of focus to heal the linear body from sort of a pre-planned moment. We think that it is imperative that if you're moving into healing yourself, that you have a really clear thought process, because your thoughts are what create everything. So if you're abdicating, let's say you have the cancerous moment and you are involved in it at the moment, and you're looking around saying, I don't want to leave. I really don't want to leave. And I don't feel the same way energetically that I did when I made the decisions or plans before I moved into this life. So we would say go into a meditative moment and connect with that energy of you that made these plans to begin with, and realize that you have rescinded the idea of leaving early, that you would like to stay, and that the problematic moments that created that atmosphere have diminished because you looked on them and you have resolved them without having to take yourself out of the timeline. So self-healing is available. It isn't just waving a magic energetic wand and saying, oh, you're healed. There are a lot of steps in it. And there's a lot of knowing and acceptance that you have fixed the rather irregular energy in you, and you don't need to take yourself out of the timeline to continue that. So it's not a question that we can sit and answer like an across-the-board way, because obviously it's very individualistic with each one of you. But we can tell you that it is probable and possible to change what you put in place when you came in. And we think that's valuable information, and all of you, especially those of you who are under the weather, should take into consideration.
Thank you, Veronica. And this is another question from the comments from actually the last episode by Ross. And I'll just preface it by saying there's an assumption here, and that is that everybody doesn't just die and become a causal plane entity. It could take a while, or it may never happen. But here's Ross's question. When we are integrated into the spirit world, as you are, Veronica, will we know all that is to be known? Will we wonder about anything? Will any mysteries remain?
As in any progression, there are levels of awareness. When you cross out of physical reality, you do have access to all of yourselves and all of the experience that you have had thus far. When you are in between, there is a lot of information available, but not everything. The beauty of being means that there's always opportunity to expand to another level, whether you're in physical or you're not in physical. Be a sad moment to just spring from a youthful perspective energetically to an advanced level energetically and not have the experience in between to season it with the richness of living. We think that all of you need to understand that evolution occurs in the linear, but it also occurs in the non-physical all the time. And the beauty is that there is always more. And that holds true for both places, linear and nonlinear. The ever-expanding moment of your soul is a beautiful thing, and it continues. Whether you want it to or not, it does. So we'd say take a moment to reflect and then get on with the business of evolution.
Thank you, Veronica. This next question is from Anna Carola, and it's addressed to April, but I think Veronica is better able to answer this question. And it was, I was wondering, could it happen that an entity you met could decide to stay in your body and force you to live in her world? Also, are all entities benevolent? How do you prevent unpleasant entities from entering? Thank you, greatly appreciated.
Again, negativity only exists in the linear. Spirit realm, there are not entities who are going to want to take over or hijack your life. They can do that if they want. If there's an energy that wants to have an experience, they will manifest their own linear environment. It is not the perspective of spirit to control or manipulate anyone or anything. Any intersection of spiritual energy is usually there to be of help or to be enlightening or to give comfort. There are no energies that would wish to hijack your experience. So that is a fearful thing that we think has been put in place by the culture that you're all in, and frankly, it should be eliminated.
Thank you, Veronica. And just as a tangent to that, a lot of people do these ceremonies. They put candles and all, and they do all these affirmations. And a lot of people have come in and criticized April, including, some fairly public sessions that we did with this television show. How could you possibly do this? And aren't you afraid? And I think Veronica just addressed that. But a lot of people also ask about this thing about lower astrals. And sometimes they do come in. If you're playing on a Ouija board, I use the word playing instead of being serious. What about lower astrals?
Well, we think in the human condition, all of you have experienced a toddler who comes in and is extremely cute, but comes in with outrageous behavior that all of you laugh and giggle at, but attempt very much to align their energy and say, oh, no, that's not what we'd say. That a lower astral energy is very much like a 2-year-old, that it's an energy that's trying to evolve, not having much success with it, and runs around on the astral plane like a 2-year-old, a mischievous 2-year-old, wreaking a little havoc. Now, would you condemn and shun a 2-year-old simply because they don't know any better? No, you wouldn't. So we say look at a lower astral as an energy that can't harm you, and look at it like it's a 2-year-old child who's just experiencing the reality and probably not doing a very good job.
Thank you, Veronica. Now, I'm getting a lot of emails about people say they just love hear Veronica talking about history, past lives with it. And I'm going to ask her about history, but we have a policy we don't talk about current politics. But so I want to say anything 200 years or older, even though I really like a couple of people who were major inventors in the early 19th century. But 20th century, early 20th century. So I'm going to ask Veronica to tell us about any life she or anybody she knows has had, or just about history. One of my favorite mentions that she made was how they used to use sugarcane as a drug. But I'm just going to open this floor to Veronica to talk about whatever she wants in that regard.
From our perspective, we are able to look at the totality of experience upon the sphere that you all are living on, which is in your culture called Earth. There have been many episodes of participation that caused evolution, prevented evolution, and confused evolution. One of the moments that come to mind is when we have talked much about the concept of sugarcane. Now, in early colonial American times, and even before that, there was the perspective of coming in and creating an atmosphere of growing crops and making money in the, quote, new world. Now, of course, they brought in individuals who were probably there against their will. And to make them work better, it was a clear understanding that sugarcane helped everyone move a little faster, get a little bit more done, and made everyone have a little bit better attitude. Now, in the current culture you're in, most would say, they were giving them drugs, obviously. But what would you say if the drug was sugar? That in that time frame, the opiates weren't quite as readily available in that particular quadrant. And sugarcane was something that they gave to those who were working for them or working because they were forced to. And it helped them work a little faster, a little harder. It was an item that was of great desire and was given readily to those who were participating on, say, the plantations. It helped them feel better, helped them have a little bit more of a euphoric perspective, and it also, from the plantation owner's perspective, made things move a little faster. We have observed a lot of individual dramatics for different cultures and time frames. And that particular one was fraught with sugarcane because it was readily available and it was given, and it was like go on and on about the different time frames, and perhaps we will at some point give you a perspective of how things work. We'd say that the time frames have differences that don't really have any bearing upon this current conversation, but we will move into it at another time.
Thank you, Veronica. And we will move into many different things at another time. So this is the point when it's time for Veronica's message to you and the world. So hold on.
When your eyes open in the morning, decide that you're going to expect a fragrance of love, a fragrance of freedom from all the past traumatics that might have dragged you down into the depths of despair. That today is a fresh day. And whatever happened yesterday, happened yesterday. Use the timeline to eliminate poor feeling and put it in its place yesterday. And decide that today is going to be brighter and fresher than anything you've experienced so far. You can do this on an individual basis. Don't allow others to beat you down or allow yourself to beat yourself down into a negative perspective. When you awaken, immediately go out into the sunlight and marvel at the new day that is presented to you, the empty canvas that you can change everything in. Decide to do that. Don't wallow in the past. Don't project into the future. Stay very present and allow the freshness of the day to be the opportunity that you seek.
Thank you, Veronica. I love that last line. I might use it. This concludes the interesting part, as I like to say, of the broadcast and podcast. So anyway, thank you, and we'll see you next time.